Back you're watching Sunday edition here on KTN News. Let's take a look at some of the political headlines this Sunday morning. I'm joined by political analyst Dismas Mukua and a new entrant here on the show on Sunday edition, Jackton Meso, who is vying for the parliamentary seat of Dagoretti North, seeking to unseat Simba Arati in the August 8th general election. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
You're confident you're going to unseat the Simba Arati?
It's already a done deal for Jubilee.
You don't even have the Jubilee ticket yet.
Jubilee ticket, we are getting it on 21st.
Okay.
Yeah, as a message. I'm telling you, for Dagoretti North, yeah, Jubilee Dagoretti North, we are TNA.
Okay.
And Meso is the one who actually introduced Jubilee Dagoretti North. These are entrances, other opponents. These are just party members who have already registered as the aspirants.
All right, good. All the best on Friday.
His confidence is overwhelming.
I think I'll be personally covering the nominations there in Dagoretti and Nairobi.
And you need to recall that State House in Dagoretti North is a high time. In fact, let me teach you our greetings Dagoretti North. Nilibadilisha huko. Inasema sitaki kuona Uhuru Kenyatta akilala opposition tena.
That is your whatever.
Yes,
that is your
sitaki
greeting.
Uhuru Kenyatta alale opposition tena.
All right, enough campaigning on my show.
Yes.
I suspect Simba Arati is a nervous man wherever he is.
Right, let's take a look at some of these stories, political headlines. Start with the Sunday Nation. Let's talk about that. It doesn't seem to have an end to it, this thing about the sharing the presidential flag bearer by the National Super Alliance. New details on NASA power plan emerge ahead of the meeting. There is Dismas, some details about a powerful post of a prime minister with key roles for the third principle. What's your take on this new detail? Are they new anyway?
Well, there's if you go through that story into detail, expecting to get anything new, you'll be a very disappointed reader, because really there is no detail. And what the principals are agreeing upon is that one of them is obviously going to be the president, the other one is going to be the deputy president, one will be in charge of the legislative agenda, and the other person will be a first among equals in the cabinet. So really there is no new detail. And from when you look at the body language of the four principals, the NASA principals, they've actually taken a decision on who is going to be the presidential candidate and who is going to be the running mate, and who is going to be in charge of the legislative agenda. They've actually, they already know. What they're doing now when they're going for all these retreats is to plan on how to manage expectations. That are, for instance, how do you break this news to the Luya nation so that there is no fallout? How do you break this news to the Kamba nation so that there is no fallout? And in deciding this thing, they looked at a number of variables. The first one they were looking at is all of them have run for as a presidential candidates or as running mates all over since we got into multi-party politics. So they were looking at the number of votes they've acquired during that time and the probability of increasing the tally. The number two, they were looking at the ability to mobilize their resources, because it's going to be a very short space of time. Are they going to mobilize resources? But more important, they were looking who is able to get the Jubilee votes from Rift Valley, who can easily go to Rift Valley and ruffle the feathers and get votes. And again, who is likely to create a situation in central Kenya that the people do not become nervous. So those are some of the variables they were looking at. So what the journalists are trying to do right now is, because the Committee of 12 has been sending conflicting information, and they've been testing waters using all those variables. And you recall the ODM Secretary General was too honest for a politician when she actually confirmed that all the information which has been coming out has been leakages. And you saw the Committee of 12 led by Orengo trying to manage those expectations. And one really hopes that they keep the nation in suspense so that Meso and company are worried. You realize even Meso right now would like to identify the candidates so that now the president and his deputy can zoom in.
What do you think about these talks for the flag bearer?
Talking of worries, Meso and the Jubilee, we are not worried at all. Because at first, when you see the lineup of these guys, they don't have any agenda for Kenya. It's positioning themselves. Who owns what? Who will take which position? Talking of this is the so-called president, deputy president, and then there is a introduction of something that is not even in a constitution, okay? Hoping that in case, you know, they are relying on probabilities, okay? And the probabilities like casting a die, you know? That is 1/6.
So you're not worried at all?
We are not worried at all because among the 4 or whatever 5 principles, you know, the likelihood even of them increasing the principles is very high. None of them can actually beat Uhuru Kenyatta in terms of development, okay? So with these guys, they are power-hungry people, wishing that one day, and for us, remember, for us in Western, we've said, no Mudavadi, no NAS. So they should also count Western out.
So at that stage, if Mudavadi becomes a presidential candidate, there's a chance that you can actually move to Amani National Congress.
Do you think these guys can allow Mudavadi to be? They've already said that Nani, this Wetandawili guy, what is the name? I don't know. That he's their favorite. Okay? So
what would happen if
Mudavadi is also there hoping that due to the Luya numbers, may they consider. And also one thing is this, we as lawyers, we don't care who becomes the flag bearer of the NASA thing. We want to be in government. And we know where the government is and who is the government.
Meso, if you lose on Friday,
what do you mean by losing?
If you don't get the Jubilee ticket,
how?
What happens?
My friend, one thing, my main competitor is just I'm competing with myself and the Jubilee Party itself.
All right. Very confident, I see.
And Jubilee Party itself. One thing is this. The person who is perceived to be my main competitor as a challenger, she is a lady. Unajua, when I was in class 1, msichana alinishinda CRE ina max moja. Babu yangu alinichuna, atunashindwa na mwanamke.
So you're not going to lose. All right.
Now I'm an old man. How do you expect me to lose?
All right.
To a woman.
Let's get back on course. Let's get back on course. How do you see this playing? Do you see the NASA principals finally announcing something solid once and for all, or do you see the games continuing?
Well, I think what NASA is doing is a very good strategy. That they're keeping everybody in Kenya in suspense, and in the process, every conversation in town is around NASA. If you speak to the NASA members for Amani National Congress, Ford Kenya, ODM, and Wiper, everybody's having a conversation around NASA. If you go to Jubilee, in as much as Meso said that nobody in Jubilee is worried over the NASA presidential candidates, the conversation is around NASA. And I think that's very good for brand building. But what they need to do now is to start managing the expectations by telling Kenyans, or rather by giving us some sort of a timeline when they're likely to come up with the presidential candidates. But if I was with the NASA team, I'll push it to the last minute so that this suspense is so high that it's almost, there is something that is almost tangible, that you can touch it, so that by the time they announce the flag bearer, then they maintain the momentum till August 8th. Because again, Kenyans, we tend to have a memory space of only 6 weeks. So if they do it the last minute and they maintain momentum, then they'll be able to give Jubilee a run for their money. And maybe it's something that we may need to disabuse Kenyans, that in a presidential system like what we have in Kenya, everybody is in government. The fact that the party in power, like Jubilee, is the ruling party, you cannot say that there's any other person who is outside government. Like, for instance, when you look at Moses Wetangula, is the majority, or rather minority leader at the Senate, but he's still in government. He runs around with a GK vehicle, and the same is the case for Nyenze. So in a pure presidential system, we don't have, say, you can't say that somebody is in government and somebody is in the opposition. And that's now the trick that Jubilee has been using when they're doing campaigns countrywide, by branding everybody in the opposition and telling people that if you want to be government, come to our political party. I think what Jubilee should be saying, that if you want to be part of the Jubilee administration, join us. Because when you tell people that if you want to be in government, come to a political party, actually you are purveyor of fake news and alternative facts.
All right. Let me ask you something that you want to respond to.
Yes,
that?
just to respond to his claim. There are usually two alternatives, and one has to go. It's either NASA government or Jubilee government. Okay? Now, the state remains intact, but the government always changes. Okay? Now, the thing is this. Jubilee has never used propaganda. The Jubilee, we are using facts. These people were in government, okay? One was a prime minister, another one was a minister, another one was a vice president. The question is, then another one, Mudavadi, was a deputy prime minister, right? What did these people do when they were in government that now they want to tell Kenyans they are going to do in case? You see? If not just a matter of power. For us as Jubilee, you are talking of worry. We would have been worried if Uhuru Kenyatta would have defected to the so-called NASA, because Uhuru Kenyatta is the man to beat as a presidential candidate in Kenya. And now that we have him, we are good. Okay.
The opposition has punched a lot of holes into his track record of the last 4 years or so. Corruption, harsh indictment, all those things.
Uhuru Kenyatta has never been involved in any corruption deals. Okay? And this,
not himself as a person, but the Jubilee administration when it has been in power.
In fact, when you check on Jubilee administration, it has greatly fought, okay, has been a forefront in the fight against corruption. The fact that it is a government, then it has a responsibility.
All right.
Okay? However, you cannot eliminate 100% corruption. But to reduce, Jubilee has really tried to reduce corruption.
Ben, allow me to buttress a point about probabilities. As we go to the election, there's a chance that you can have a NASA man as the President of the Republic of Kenya, or you can have a Jubilee man as the President of the Republic of Kenya. So those two probabilities do exist. When you go to the National Assembly, there's a chance that NASA could have a majority or Jubilee, and the same would happen to the Senate. So it's not fair to throw the blanket statement by saying that this is going to be a Jubilee government, because when you're looking at this purely from a political science perspective, we are actually looking at administrations, because you see the judiciary is never going to change, and it's part of government, so that one sticks there. And now you've opened a Pandora's box, because when you're talking about President Kenyatta's track record on fighting corruption, number one, he scores an A in terms of failing to fight corruption. You recall not long ago, people were said to be members of the first family who were given deals at the Ministry of Health, at Afia House. That one has not been sorted out.
It was an allegation.
There's the issue of NYS, that one has not been sorted out. There's the issue of Eurobond, that one has not been sorted out. In fact, a third of his cabinet was suspended or fired. And a number of cases are still lingering the corridors of justice. Nothing has happened. So that's number one. Number two, when you look at the cost of living, a normal Kenyan, even the middle class, cannot afford to buy 3 meals in a day. And the duty of any president is to create opportunities so that either you reduce the cost of living or you increase disposable incomes. So that when a normal person, like for instance, some of your voters, when they wake up in the morning, they shouldn't be worried what they're going to have for breakfast, what they're going to have lunch or supper. Right now, majority of your voters, it's easy for them to buy chapati than buy ugali. I don't know that they can afford to buy ingoko, which is their favorite dish. But that's the principal responsibility of a president, to make sure that that works. And if you go through records, when President Kenyatta took over, on average, a packet of unga was 80 bob, and that one has doubled. There's now the Gulana Kalalu project, which is supposed to bring the cost down. That has happened. A few days ago, we were told that in the next 2 weeks, it's going to be significantly lower than 115. That has not been the case. If you look at the cost of electricity, I mean, you look at everything really. Even the government right now, we understand it's broke. It's unable to pay, it's not able to pay contractors in good time. Even unknown to many Kenyans, we were going to miss the target, Ben, on elections, because when IBC was supposed to pay suppliers in France, there was a bit of delay because they were told that IFMIS was not working. But it's not that IFMIS was not working. It was an issue of cash flow. And when you go to that portal that the president launched a few days ago, I saw in a conversation on national TV that one of the persons who is supposed to be a beneficiary of the last mile connectivity is Honorable Boni Kalwale. And in his home, he said he uses a generator which installed 10 years ago, but is listed as one of the beneficiaries. So there's a bit of propaganda, there are alternative facts, and fake news that a normal Kenyan is not able to substantiate. Even when you talk about the roads, you say, when you're a success, voters are supposed to feel the success. Voters are supposed to see the roads.
All right.
Voters are supposed to see all these things. They're not supposed to be told.
Just to respond.
Yes.
Having spoken that, you really said half of Uhuru Kenyatta's cabinet was fired. Who fired the cabinet?
But were they prosecuted?
No,
Is there anybody in jail?
If you can allege that Uhuru Kenyatta, okay, according to a scorecard, that he happens to score an A in failing to deal with the corruption. And again, you yourself, you say that he happened to fire his half of the cabinet, okay?
But now nobody has been prosecuted.
No. You know, you are contradicting yourself.
Okay.
Let
me rephrase it, Meso.
One, if you recall, during the Prime Minister's period, there was a scandal, the youth fund and so forth. How many people did he fire? No one. Uhuru Kenyatta happened to fire half of the cabinet, of which nobody, as a leader in East Africa or Africa, has ever done. Okay? That is an indicator that is the person who is in the forefront to deal and curb corruption, regardless of your status in a community, is Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Now, talking of Gulana Kalalu project, okay, it is a government initiative to deal with food security, okay? Though the yield, the harvest did not come out as expected, only my challenge to my government is that the Israelis who were contracted, okay, it's good to have experts, right? But a common person's involvement, the local people involvement, very key, okay?
All right.
Now, in order for us to realize the yield, let us fully involve the common mwananchi and that person, the locals' participation in that project.
All right.
Okay.
But Ben, if you just allow me to buttress that point.
Like 30 seconds only. We need to move on from Uhuru Kenyatta's.
One of the promises made by Jubilee is that Kenya shall be food secure in 3 years. Right now, Gulanu is a disaster, a successful failure, so that's one we can't even discuss about it, because even when you look at the cost per bag, production cost is very high.
There will never be a successful failure.
Failure
is a failure, success is success.
Well, you know, that's a phrase, an English phrase. But when you look at food security, right now, as we have this conversation, there are 3 million Kenyans facing starvation. Would you say that's a success? I don't think so. And also, when you look at the State of the Nation address, the president went to the National Assembly with a long list prepared by the Anti-Corruption Commission. And a few minutes later, it emerges that a number of the people are dead, and most of the names were fictitious, that there was no investigation done. Now, the fact that about a third of the president's cabinet had allegations of having participated in corruption, that alone is a very strong statement on the president's decision-making process. How would he appoint a third of, how would he appoint anybody to the cabinet who had the potential to go and steal?
The good thing is that you said that President went in Parliament with a list which he had been given. He did not come up with a list, right?
All right. The jury is still out, gentlemen. The jury is still out on whether President Uhuru Kenyatta has failed or succeeded in many things.
Fully succeeded, and he...
Many people seem to think he has failed. And himself asked,
that is common expectations from people. Because people are your employers, right?
Yes.
And one thing, you, as in KTN, you do not expect your employer to say you've done well. We always expect the best from you. So Kenyans still expect the best from Uhuru Kenyatta.
But when I do the best, he tells me you've done very well.
And he gets a promotion.
No, wait.
All right. No, we need to move away from this.
Kiswahili saying that Mugema Ksifiwa,
Tembo litia maji.
Yes. So
Ama fanya wema.
Yes. Let me ask you, we're talking about NASA here. Don't forget. Let me ask you.
Yes, what's about NASA?
I've asked all the Jubilee leaders I've interviewed here.
Yes.
Is what would be the most what pairing among the four on the ticket would worry you the most?
None of them. And in fact, we would even ask for all of them to be flag bearers under one ticket. Because,
I want you to be objective. I want you to be objective.
Yes, I'm talking about objectivity. Okay? One is this. None of the four is a worry to Jubilee. And I remind you, the only man to beat in Kenya as a presidential candidate is Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta.
If you insist on that, nobody worries you. But we hear Jubilee leaders every day saying, these people, when are they going to announce?
They don't have mpangilio.
No. Why are you worried about them then?
No.
If they don't worry.
No, we are worried about Kenyans because we want to give a Kenya competition.
All right, let's take a look at another story still on the same page 6 of the Sunday Nation. Protest as parliamentary aspirant vanishes, carried with bullets. This is, of course, about the Kabete constituency. The aspirant Charles Chege, aka Chege Fresh, who disappeared on Friday, but has been found. We have reported here this morning that he has been found in the county of Narok. What is your take on this? Very dirty politics starting to emerge ahead of the elections.
Well, again, there's a story in one of the newspapers I can't recall which is that Moses Muya, when he was running against then Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta in Gatundu.
Yes, a standard.
Yeah, again, there was a disappearing act. And you can see even from the way my friend Ameso is speaking, I think he spends most of his time with the Deputy President Ruto. You can look at the man of language and speech. But politicians in Kenya are very mischievous. There's a very high probability that, in fact, his political competition probably kidnapped him and maybe wanted to eliminate him. But what seems to be really the case is that this gentleman was looking for an opportunity for publicity. You recall not long ago, there was a speaker, I think, of Meru Embu called Mati, again, who did a runner. He disappeared and emerged a few days later. And you recall when he emerged at Aga Khan Hospital, the thing which was at the top of his mind was Uji, and he wanted to see his mother. So you cannot rule out all these possibilities. But I think the principal now duty is for the Inspector General of Police to do very good investigations. And if this thing is mischief intended for publicity, this gentleman must be punished. And one hopes that Jubilee as a political party will actually punish him for that. And if maybe the political competition is the one that organized for this crime, then of course the guy is supposed to be brought to book and be punished accordingly. But one hopes that it's actually not the competition that did this, that decided to kidnap, because it would be so disappointing. And electives being very competitive, you have about 18,000 people running for various political seats in Kenya. One would be so disappointed if the competition would engage in this mischief.
So this is happening in Jubilee.
And this is not happening in Jubilee.
Jubilee.
One thing is this: he is a Jubilee candidate, and as a party, as a party, we do not take time, or we do not have the capacity to study individuals' character. One thing is this: if talking of kidnapping, this could be self-kidnapping. One, study the body language of relatives when they were being interviewed. Okay? It will tell you that there's nobody missing. We recall there was a time within the streets of Nairobi, is it Michuki or who, whose vehicle was alleged to have been actually flashed with the bullets. Okay? And it was found that it was self-thing.
Self-inflicted.
Yes. So this could be part and parcel of such scenarios where politicians are looking for publicity, but in a wrong way. Yeah, but because this does not add any vote to yourself. In fact, for us in Jubilee,
would Jubilee take action on this?
For us,
if that was the case.
For us, the only action Jubilee can take is on 21st. The Kabete residents are going to sound their mind. The kind of the choice they make, okay, the will of people will prevail. If somebody did this because we want maybe to have favors, okay, from the people that the so-called was kidnapped, now let us now give sympathy votes.
All right.
As nobody's looking, no resident in any area is looking to give somebody a sympathy vote. They are looking for a leader.
All right.
Yeah.
Dismas, you wanted to say something?
Well, for me, I really think this is the time we expect the Inspector General of Police to move with speed and have these cases handled by, the top detectives, so as to establish the cause. If it's self-inflicted, the way you have said self-kidnap, then this gentleman must be tried under the relevant sections of the law. And it would be important for Jubilee to punish him because, you stopped another gentleman running from the Senate, and this one would fall in that category if he's playing around with Kenyans.
Guys, what I fail to understand is this. When you're asking the top detective to take their time on this, when President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy Ruto are fighting corruption and also trying to deal with drug suppliers and so forth, and you are not asking them or asking top detectives to deal with that. This is not something to give a keen ear on.
No.
The guy was said to be missing, okay? And the guy is said to have been availed himself. So the thing is this, let us leave to Kabete residents on 21st to make their choice.
The point that I'm buttressing is there are so many people running for elective seats.
Yes.
You do not want to give the competition the opportunity to arrange for a kidnap or to come and kill the political competition. So that's why the Inspector General, and when you talk about the Inspector General, you're not talking about Boynet, you're talking about the system that he runs.
Yes.
Yeah, so that they take quick action, find out whether or not he was actually kidnapped. Because, there were bullet marks on the car.
All right.
So that if he was actually kidnapped, the person who organized for the kidnap is made to pay for that. Like, for instance, you're here, and we pray that it doesn't happen. Would you be happy if somebody decides to kidnap you today on your way when you're doing your normal campaigns and then, kills you somewhere because he's interested in the same seat like you? I don't think that's acceptable.
You can never be happy because you'll be dead. So you want to be, the only people who will not be happy are your supporters and your relatives. But you are safe when you are dead.
But is that a scenario that you'd like to see?
You would like to see. And in fact, if it happens, you will like to see, you will be a victim.
All right, let's move on.
And also there will be nothing for you to respond to because you'll be dead.
Let's move on to page 25 of the Standard on Sunday. A final thing we'll look at here on politics. Joho and Sonko lead rise of defiant politics. A new crop of leaders are street smart, opposed to the elitist nature of power and authority in Kenya. How successful can this be, Dismas?
Well, when you look at Joe and Sonko, I think they're trying to borrow a little from what Trump has done in the US, that we are doing your politics against the grain and in the process becoming very popular. But for Joe, he needs to be very careful because his brand is growing by the day and it's even becoming stronger than Mr. Raila Odinga. Because I recall in several rallies where he's been in attendance and others that he's actually not in attendance, the crowd keeps on asking for Joe. The same happened in Mathara, it happened in Bomet, and also in Kibera. And one of the 48 rules of power is never ever outshine your boss. And I think Joe is likely to outshine his boss. And I don't think Raila will take it kindly. At some stage, he may need to ask him to tame down, or if he doesn't do that, then he's pushed aside. But when you look at his relationship with President Kenyatta, in as much as one may say that he runs the Mombasa County and is independent, he's been on the very extreme. You do not need to like the President of the Republic of Kenya. You don't need to be friends, but you must respect the institution. That when the President of the Republic of Kenya is in Mombasa, you need to treat him with respect. You must not attend his rallies if you're not invited. But again, Ben, it's the same Governor Joe who decides to go to Migori, and he doesn't even bother to inform the local governor, Obado, that I'm around in town. And in as much as he was going for a rally organized by UNES, and maybe was going to endorse the competition, best practices and best manners would have demanded that at least he goes to Okoth Obado's office for a cup of tea, and he tells him, I'm here for this particular meeting, and you are not wanted. But engaging in this kind of violence, not respecting people, doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, for the case of Sonko, I think in Nairobi is overrated. In as much as he's a very populist candidate, he has overrated himself. And when you look at the votes he got last time, everybody who voted for President Kenyatta voted for him, but he was not able to transfer his votes. And one hopes that at some stage he would be able to actually go to the ground and prove that he is strong. Actually, maybe Mesoya should dare him to move out of Jubilee and run as an independent to find out whether he can get the 800,000 votes that he got last time.
Right.
But now the problem with the populist candidates, they have nothing tangible to offer because they know how to wipe up emotions, and people say Sonko, people say Sultan Joe. But when you go to the ground, they've not offered anything. If you go to Mombasa County, you'll be a very disappointed man because depending on who gives you the figures, there's a lot of garbage in town, and Mombasa is a very small county. Most people don't have piped water, never mind that it's next to next to the ocean, is not really delivered value.
All right.
And I also don't know whether Sonko, as the senator for Nairobi, has been able to offer effective oversight to the county government of Nairobi. Because if he did offer very good oversight, we wouldn't be complaining about Dr. Evans Kidero.
All right.
Because majority of people, and this is important being a resident in Nairobi, you do not get to feel the effect of the county government of Nairobi. You do not get to feel Kidero. All Dr. Kidero says is that there are street lights. But is that really a priority? Because Nairobi is supposed to be clean. There are so many things is not done. And one can easily blame Sonko for failure to give very serious oversight on matters of devolution in Nairobi.
Meso, what's your take on this brand of politics? Can it work in Kenya?
One thing is that
your brand of politics?
Let me respond. Joho's politics is not rising at all. He's only trying to please his party leader, okay? And he's not in any way near outshining Raila, but he's only trying to please Raila by showing disrespect to the president. And that's why, watch it out. Jubilee will be taking over Mombasa. We have a candidate, a very strong candidate.
Suleiman Shabal.
And the good thing is this, you are even able, as an analyst, to single out not just 1, 2, or 3, okay, disappointments that the Mombasa residents are going through. So instead of offering services to Mombasa residents, he's only offering his mediocre means to try to show that he's mighty and showing lack of respect to the president.
What about
okay, now the thing is this. For us to come into Sonko, Nairobi, okay? Sonko is our Jubilee candidate. On 21st, we'll be getting, we have Sonko, we have Honorable Peter Kenneth, okay? We have Bishop Wanjiru. So on 21st, we'll be knowing whom among our gubernatorial candidates will be our Jubilee candidate in Nairobi. And then Sonko has the ground, yes. As you said it, Sonko has the ground, right? What we are asking as our party leader, the president and the deputy, to make sure that Sonko and the PK works together. Because if that happens, then definitely we'll be having Nairobi as Jubilee.
All right. All right, let's leave it there in terms of the political pages. We're coming back to discuss the ODM nominations, how they've gone, and also more about the NASA power sharing deal. But we're taking a quick commercial break here on Sunday edition. Many thanks for staying with us. Of course, we've been talking about some of the big stories making headlines. When we return, we take a look at the ODM nominations, what has been done so far. We kind of give an overview and analysis of how ODM has done in terms of the 6 counties they've been able to conduct the nominations. That is, of course, Samburu, Turkana, Narok, Kakamega, and the first 3, Busia, Bungoma, and Machakos. 7 counties they have done so far, ODM. Some of the problems that have come out, some of the successes, if there are any, we shall be analyzing that. We shall also be taking you back to the county of Narok to speak to the OCPD there concerning the disappearance now being found of the Jubilee aspirant Chege Fresh, who has been found in the county of Narok. Stay with us here on Sunday edition. We're back shortly.
But he was not injured. They took him into their vehicle, where after taking some distance, they ordered him to take some soda, which were containing some drugs. And they took him to a known house where they kept him almost the whole night. During the night, he was given some bread and soda. Later on, he found himself at Narok, where he can't recall where it was. After gaining some sense, he walked up to Ash petrol station, where he found a taxi driver by the name Samson Odiambo. He introduced himself to that taxi driver, and that taxi driver took him to Narok Hospital, where he is now, and he has been given some medication, and he's out of danger. He was not injured, only during when he was being transported in that vehicle, those culprits stepped on his ribs, and he's feeling some pains. But he's out of danger. He was not shot. There is no physical injuries caused on him. Yes.
And maybe according to him, can he recall where he was when he was being given bread and stuff? And what time was that?
He can only recall that he was given some drugs while in that vehicle. The second drugs which were given to him was yesterday night around 10:00 p.m. He was given another drug, whereby he became unconscious up to this morning, 6 in the morning, when he gained his consciousness at Narok.
So where exactly in Narok was he found?
He can't know. Only he found himself near Ash petrol station, where he found that taxi driver.
Have you talked to the taxi driver, and what time was that?
He said he found him at 6:30 a.m. And we are now preparing to escort him up to Aga Khan Hospital for further treatment. And then the Kapete people officers will take over the case.
Okay.
Yes.
You've also said that you're waiting for the relative.
We are waiting for a relative, since the doctor has preferred that he should be escorted to that hospital, Aga Khan, while accompanied by his relative.
Okay. And maybe in terms of...
He's aspiring on a Jubilee ticket. Yes. Even now he's wearing a Jubilee shirt. And he has said there are 5 contestants of Jubilee. Lakini sasa mimi nashangaa. Unajua ukisha jitokesha kuingia kwa siasa, what you are expecting, you expect to win, but don't fear to be defeated. Kama umeingia wewe, ingia ujue utashindwa ama utashinda.
So have you investigated maybe if it was a self-involved incident where politics is something that somebody maybe...
I asked him when you are being taken, did they ask you anything concerning politics? He has told me that the only thing they asked him, unaonaje siasa? Akamwambia mimi naona ni mzuri. Kwa sababu yesterday he was supposed to launch his campaign. That means yesterday amepoteza hiyo launching of campaign.
For how long should we wait? Maybe for him, we're waiting for the relative first before you're getting to...
I hope they are on the way. Nowadays there are vehicles which have got power. They can run. They can be driven at high speed. The vehicle registration number of his vehicle is KCF 838C Brado. He was unable to notice the registration number of the vehicle which blocked him.
But his car, that's the registration of his car?
Yes.
Okay.
Which everybody saw yesterday, he had some bullets.
They read all the bullets?
Yes.
Okay.
Lakini mzuri hakuumishwa.
But we've been tumekuwa na masuala ya wanasiasa kujipoteza kisha wanarudi wanapatikana, inasemekana kwamba labda ni ukora walikuwa wanafanya kwa sababu wapate sympathy votes.
Lakini huyu simuliona gari ilikuwa imepigwa risasi. Ilikuwa imepigwa risasi ambaye sidhani kama anaweza kuwa alikuwa amejipangia.
Yes.